Brandon Mallister's car rolled into the driveway like a whisper. He didn't call ahead. He never did anymore. The mansion stood quiet in the morning light, its white walls gleaming like teeth. Brandon pulled his suitcase from the trunk and walked toward the front door, his shoes clicking on the stone path. Inside, everything smelled different. Not bad, just lived in. There was a scent of herbs in the air, something green and fresh. Brandon frowned. He expected silence. He expected the cold, clean emptiness he always left behind. But there was warmth here now. He set his suitcase down in the hallway and listened. From somewhere deep in the house came a soft humming sound. A woman's voice, gentle and low. Brandon's frown deepened. He followed the sound through the hallways he barely recognized anymore, past pictures on the walls he hadn't stopped to look at in months. The humming led him to the kitchen. Brandon pushed open the door and froze. His heart stopped beating for one terrible second. There, in the middle of his bright kitchen, stood Yvette, the nanny, the woman he'd hired a year ago and barely spoken since. She stood by the stove, her back to him, her dark curls tied up in a colorful scarf. And in her arms, leaning over a large silver pot on the counter, was something small and precious. His son, baby Liam. But that wasn't what made Brandon's blood turn to ice. The pot was huge, big enough to cook a turkey, and surrounding it, arranged in neat little piles on the counter, were vegetables. Carrots, celery, onions, herbs scattered like confetti. And Yvette was holding Liam right over the pot. "What are you doing?" Brandon's voice exploded into the peaceful kitchen like a bomb. Yvette spun around, her eyes wide with shock. Liam, startled by the shout, began to cry. His little face crumpled, turning red. "Mr. Mallister," Yvette gasped, pulling Liam close to her chest. "You're home. I didn't hear you come in." "Put him down," Brandon roared, rushing forward. His mind was spinning, showing him terrible pictures he couldn't stop. The pot, the vegetables, his son dangling above it all like, "What are you doing to my son?" His voice shook, his hands shook. Everything inside him shook with a fury, so hot it felt like fire in his chest. Yvette stepped back, her arms wrapped tight around Liam. The baby wailed louder now, sensing the fear and anger crackling in the air. "Mr. Mallister, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Brandon's face turned red. He pointed at the pot, at the vegetables, at everything that looked so wrong, so terrifying. "You have my son over a cooking pot. What kind of monster are you?" "No." Yvette's voice rose, strong and clear even through her shock. "No, sir, it's not what you think." "Then explain." Brandon moved closer, his whole body tense like a spring ready to snap. "Explain why my son is crying. Explain why you have him near a stove. Explain those vegetables." Liam's cries filled every corner of the kitchen. The sound stabbed at Brandon's heart. His son, his precious boy, the only piece of Maria he had left after she died, bringing this child into the world. Yvette's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. She held Liam tighter, swaying gently even as the baby screamed. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady. "The stove isn't on, Mr. Mallister." Brandon blinked. "What?" "The stove isn't on." Yvette said each word carefully, like she was talking to a child. "Touch it if you don't believe me." Brandon's hand shot out. He pressed his palm against the burner beneath the pot. Cold, completely cold. "The vegetables," Yvette continued, her voice shaking now but still strong, "are for a lukewarm bath. Dr. Chin said to use them. For Liam's rash." "Rash." Brandon's anger stumbled, confusion breaking through. "What rash?" "The one on his back and legs." Yvette's voice cracked. "The one that's been keeping him up at night for 3 days. The one I called you about. Twice." Brandon's phone. He thought of his phone, buried in his briefcase during meetings, ignored during conference calls, silenced during business dinners in Tokyo. Dr. Chin said a lukewarm bath with certain vegetables and herbs can help soothe the inflammation, Yvette explained, her words tumbling faster now. "The pot is just water, room temperature water. I was checking it before putting Liam in. The vegetables give off oils that help his skin. Brandon stared at the pot, at the vegetables, at Yvette's tear-streaked face. But a pot. His voice sounded smaller now, uncertain. It's big enough for him to sit in comfortably. It's easier to control than the bathtub. And it's shallow, so it's safe. Yvette's jaw tightened. I would never hurt him, Mr. Mallister. Never. The word never hung in the air between them. Liam's cries had softened to whimpers now, his little fists clutching Yvette's shirt. Brandon watched as she rocked him, as she whispered soft words into his downy hair, as she held him like he was made of glass and gold and everything precious in the world. You weren't here, Yvette said quietly, and those 3 words hit Brandon harder than any shout could have. His mouth opened, closed, open again. I was working, he said, but even to his own ears, it sounded hollow. You're always working. Yvette's eyes met his, and in them, Brandon saw something he hadn't expected. Disappointment. Not anger. Not fear. Just a deep, tired disappointment that made his stomach twist. The kitchen felt quiet, except for Liam's soft sniffles. Sunlight poured through the windows, warming the tiles under their feet. Brandon looked at his son, really looked at him, and saw things he'd missed. The baby was bigger, his cheeks fuller, his hair longer. How long had he been gone this time? 3 weeks? 4? Brandon couldn't remember, and that, more than anything else, terrified him. The silence stretched between them like a rope pulled tight. Brandon cleared his throat, trying to find words that wouldn't come. Liam had stopped crying now. His small body relaxed against Yvette's shoulder, one tiny fist curled around her collar. Show me, Brandon said finally. Show me this rash. Yvette hesitated, then slowly turned Liam around. She lifted his little shirt, and Brandon sucked in a breath. Red patches covered the baby's back, angry and inflamed. Some spots looked raw, like they'd been scratched. How long has he had this? Brandon whispered. 5 days. Yvette's voice was quiet but firm. It started small. I called you on day 2. Left a message. Called again on day 3. You didn't answer. Brandon's hand moved toward his son, then stopped, hovering in the air. He was afraid to touch, afraid he'd make it worse. Afraid of everything suddenly. I took him to Dr. Chin yesterday, Yvette continued, gently lowering Liam's shirt back down. She said it's a reaction. Maybe to the new laundry soap. Maybe to something he touched. She gave me cream, but she also said the vegetable bath would help pull out the inflammation. A vegetable bath, Brandon repeated, and the words felt strange in his mouth. Foreign, like a language he didn't speak. Yes. Yvette moved to the counter, shifting Liam to one hip, with her free hand. She touched the water in the pot. See? It's not hot, not even warm. Just room temperature. The carrot, celery, and herbs release natural oils that soothe the skin. Dr. Chin said many mothers in her home country use this method. Brandon walked closer and dipped his own fingers into the water. Cool, gentle, harmless. He felt like a fool. I thought. He couldn't finish the sentence. The words were too horrible to say out loud. I know what you thought. Yvette's eyes flashed. You thought I was going to hurt him. You thought I would put him in danger. The vegetables, the pot, it looked like something it wasn't. Yvette's voice hardened. Because you don't know what happens in this house anymore, Mr. Mallister. You don't know that Liam had a fever last month. You don't know he's learned to grab his toes. You don't know he laughs now when I sing to him. You don't know anything. The words hit Brandon like punches. Each one true. Each one deserved. I pay you to take care of him, Brandon said, but his voice cracked on the words. Yes, you pay me. Yvette's jaw tightened. You pay me very well. But money doesn't raise a child, Mr. Mallister. Money doesn't hold him when he wakes up crying at 2 a.m. Money doesn't count his fingers and toes to make sure he's growing right. Money doesn't kiss his forehead when he finally falls asleep after hours of fussing. Brandon felt something break inside his chest. A dam he'd built carefully, brick by brick, ever since Maria died. Ever since the world took the only woman he'd ever loved and left him with a tiny, helpless baby he didn't know how to love back. I do my job, Brandon said weakly. Your job. Yvette laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your job is being his father. When was the last time you did that job? Brandon opened his mouth, closed it. No answer came. Do you know what he does every night? Yvette's voice softened, and somehow that was worse than the anger. Around 7 o'clock, right when the sun sets, Liam crawls to the window in the nursery. He puts his little hands on the glass and watches the driveway. He watches for your car. He waits for you. Yvette. Every single night. Tears roll down her cheeks now. He waits until his eyes get heavy, until he can't keep them open anymore. And even when I carry him to bed, he turns his head toward the door, listening for your footsteps, for your voice. Brandon's vision blurred. He blinked hard, but the tears came anyway. He's a baby, Yvette continued, her voice breaking. He doesn't understand why his daddy doesn't come home. He doesn't understand business trips or conference calls or important meetings. All he understands is that you're not here. I'm providing for him. Brandon's voice rose, defensive. Everything he needs. This house, his clothes, his food, his doctor. He doesn't need a mansion. Yvette shouted back, and Liam startled in her arms, his bottom lip trembling. She immediately lowered her voice, swaying to soothe him. He needs his father. He needs you. I don't know how. The words burst out of Brandon before he could stop them. I don't know how to be what he needs. Every time I look at him, I see Maria. I see what I lost. I see what I couldn't protect. The kitchen went silent. Yvette stared at him, her eyes wide. Liam cooed softly, reaching one chubby hand toward Brandon's face, toward the tears streaming down it. Mr. Mallister, Yvette said quietly, Maria gave her life to bring Liam into this world. She didn't do that so you could run away from him. She did it because she loved you both, because she believed you would love him enough for 2 parents. Brandon's knees felt weak. He reached out and gripped the counter to steady himself. Every time I hold him, Brandon whispered, I feel like I'm failing her. You're failing her by not holding him. Yvette stepped closer. You're failing her by letting fear make you a stranger to your own son. You're failing her by hiding behind your work instead of facing the gift she gave you. Brandon looked at Liam. Really looked. The baby was watching him with wide eyes, Maria's eyes, curious and trusting. His little mouth made shapes, trying to form sounds. His fingers opened and closed, reaching. He doesn't hate you, Yvette said softly. Even after all this time, he doesn't hate you. Babies don't know how to hate. They only know how to love. And he loves you, Mr. Mallister, even though you're never here. Even though you don't hold him or read to him or sing to him. He loves you because you're his daddy. The word daddy broke something fundamental inside Brandon. He'd never let himself think of that word. Never let himself be that word. I accused you, Brandon said hoarsely. I came in here and I thought, God, Yvette, I thought you were going to hurt him. I'm so sorry. I know you are. Yvette's voice was gentle now. But sorry isn't enough, Mr. Mallister. Liam needs more than sorry. He needs you to be brave enough to love him, even if it hurts, even if it reminds you of what you lost. Because if you keep running, you'll lose him too. Brandon's heart hammered in his chest. Fear and grief and shame all twisted together until he couldn't tell them apart. What if I'm not good enough? He whispered. Then you learn to be better. Yvette smiled, tired but real. That's what parents do. They mess up, they learn, they try again, and they show up, no matter what. Leah made a sound then, a happy gurgle, and reached both hands toward Brandon, toward his father. He wants you, Yvette said softly. Brandon's hands trembled as he reached out. The space between Brandon's outstretched hands and his son felt like an ocean, a mile, a lifetime. His fingers shook as they moved through the air, closing the distance inch by terrible inch. It's okay, Yvette whispered. He won't break. But Brandon felt like he might. Like one touch might shatter everything he'd carefully built to protect himself. The walls, the distance, the endless work that kept him from feeling anything at all. His hands touched Liam's sides. So small, So warm, so alive. Brandon lifted his son from Yvette's arms. Liam was heavier than he remembered. Solid, real. He smelled like baby soap and something sweet like milk and innocence. The baby stared up at Brandon with those impossibly big eyes, studying his face like it was the most interesting thing in the whole world. Then Liam smiled. A real smile, gums showing, eyes crinkling at the corners. Pure joy spreading across his tiny face. Brandon's breath caught in his throat. He smiled at me. Of course he did. Yvette's voice was soft, almost tender. You're his father. The word finally felt real. Father. Daddy. Dad. Brandon pulled Liam closer to his chest, and the baby tucked his head under Brandon's chin like he belonged there, like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole short life. One little hand grabbed Brandon's shirt. The other patted his chest, right over his racing heart. I don't deserve this, Brandon whispered. No, Yvette said honestly. You probably don't. Not yet. But that's not how love works, Mr. Mallister. Love isn't something we earn. It's something we choose. Every single day. And right now you have to choose. Brandon looked at her. Choose what? Choose to be here. Choose to be present. Choose to be his father, not just a man who pays the bills. Yvette crossed her arms, her expression serious. Because I won't watch you break this child heart over and over again. I won't stand by while you make him wait by windows and cry himself to sleep. If you can't commit to being here, to really being here, then you need to let me know now. What are you saying? Brandon's arms tightened around Liam protectively. I'm saying that I love this baby. Yvette's voice shook with emotion. I've cared for him since he was 3 days old. I've walked him through colic and teething and nightmares. I've sung him every lullaby I know. I've given him everything I have. But I'm not his mother, Mr. Mallister. And I'm not his father. I'm just a nanny. You're not just anything, Brandon said fiercely. You're the one who's been here. You're the one who kept him alive and healthy and happy when I was too much of a coward to do it myself. Yvette's eyes widened with surprise. You were right about everything, Brandon continued, his voice rough. I ran. I hid. I buried myself in work because facing him meant facing what I lost, facing what I was afraid I'd lose again. He looked down at Liam, who was making soft babbling sounds. But I'm more afraid of losing him by never knowing him at all. Pretty words, Yvette said quietly. But Liam needs more than words. I know. Brandon swallowed hard. I know I can't make up for lost time. I know I've failed him in every way that matters. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. To teach me. To help me figure out how to be what he needs. Yvette studied him for a long moment. Her eyes searched his face, looking for truth. Looking for commitment, looking for something worth believing in. You can't disappear again, she finally said. You can't come home for one day and then vanish for another month. That's worse than not coming home at all. I won't. Brandon's voice was firm. I'll cut back my travel. I'll work from home more. I'll be here for dinner, for bath time, for bedtime, for everything. And when work calls, when there's an important meeting or a business emergency or a deal that absolutely cannot wait. Yvette raised an eyebrow. What then? Brandon looked at his son, at the way Liam's fingers curled around his thumb, at the trust in those innocent eyes. Then work waits, Brandon said, because nothing is more important than this, than him, than being the father Maria believed I could be. Yvette's stern expression softened. She reached out and touched Liam's cheek gently. He's going to test you. Babies do. They cry in the middle of the night. They throw food. They need constant attention. It's exhausting and messy and sometimes completely thankless. I know, Brandon said, though he really didn't. Not yet, but it's also magical, Yvette continued, her voice warming. The first time he says, "Dada," the first time he walks toward you with those wobbly little legs. The first time he falls asleep on your shoulder and you realize that you'd fight the whole world to keep him safe. Those moments make all the hard parts worth it. Brandon felt tears sliding down his cheeks again. He didn't bother wiping them away. Will you help me? He asked. Will you teach me how to take care of him? How to be a good father? Yvette smiled, really smiled, for the first time since Brandon had burst into the kitchen. I've been waiting for you to ask that question for a year, Mr. Mallister. Brandon, he said. Just Brandon. I think we're past formalities. Brandon. Yvette nodded. Then let's start right now. Liam needs his bath. The water's ready. Are you ready? Brandon looked at the pot on the counter, at the vegetables arranged around it. What had seemed so sinister an hour ago now looked gentle, healing, like medicine made from love and knowledge. Show me what to do, he said. For the next hour, Yvette taught Brandon how to carefully lower Liam into the lukewarm water, how to support his head and neck, how to gently splash the herbal water over the rash on his back. Liam cooed and splashed, delighted by the attention from both of them. Brandon learned how to dry his son with a soft towel, how to apply the medicated cream to the red patches, how to dress him in clean pajamas, snapping the tiny buttons with fingers that fumbled at first but grew more confident. They moved to the nursery, and Brandon saw it with new eyes. The toys scattered on the floor, the books stacked on the shelf, the rocking chair by the window where Yvette must spend hours singing and reading and simply being present. This is where he waits for you, Yvette said quietly, pointing to the window. Right here. Brandon walked to the window and looked out at the driveway, at the path his car had traveled so many times, bringing him home only to have him leave again. Not anymore, he whispered. I'm not leaving him anymore. Yvette handed him a book, then read to him. It's part of his bedtime routine. Brandon sat in the rocking chair with Liam cradled in his arms. The book was worn, its pages soft from being read over and over. He opened it and began to read, stumbling over the simple words at first, then finding his rhythm. Liam's eyes grew heavy, his body relaxed, his breathing slowed, and for the first time in a year, Brandon Mallister felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. When Liam finally fell asleep, Brandon didn't want to put him down. He wanted to hold him forever, to memorize the weight of him, the warmth of him, the absolute perfection of him. You have to let him sleep in his crib, Yvette whispered. But you can come back any time. You live here. You're his father. Brandon carefully stood and walked the crib. He lowered Liam onto the mattress, tucking a soft blanket around him. The baby sighed in his sleep, his little mouth making sucking motions. He's beautiful, Brandon whispered. He gets that from his mother, Yvette said. But he has your chin and your stubborn streak. Brandon laughed softly. Then he turned to Yvette, his expression serious. Thank you for everything, for loving him when I couldn't, for staying when I ran, for telling me the truth even when I didn't want to hear it. That's what family does, Yvette said simply. Family? You, me, Liam. We're taking care of each other now. That makes us family. Yvette smiled. If you'll have me, always, Brandon said, for as long as you'll stay. They stood together in the soft glow of the nightlight, watching Liam sleep. The house felt different now, not cold and empty, but warm, full, like a home should feel. Tomorrow, Brandon said, I'm canceling my trip to London. I'm staying here. I'm showing up. Good. Yvette nodded, because tomorrow is also the day we start teaching him to eat solid foods. It's messy. You'll need old clothes. Brandon grinned. I can handle messy. We'll see about that. Yvette headed toward the door, then paused. Brandon, I'm proud of you. For what it's worth, you did something hard today. You faced your fear. That takes courage. After she left, Brandon stayed by the crib. He watched his son sleep, memorizing every detail. The curve of his ear, the rise and fall of his tiny chest, the way his fingers curled loosely, like he was holding on to dreams. I'm here now, Brandon whispered. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I missed so much. But I promise you, Liam, I promise on your mother's memory, I will never leave you waiting again. I will be the father you deserve. Starting right now. Starting today. Liam slept on, peaceful and content, held safe by promises and love. And in that quiet nursery, with moonlight streaming through the window, a family began to heal. Real strength isn't found in money or power. It's found in showing up, in admitting when we're wrong, in choosing love even when it's scary, in being present for the people who need us most. Yvette's courage saved a family. Brandon's willingness to change gave Liam the father he deserved. And together, they proved that it's never too late to begin again. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about love, family, and second chances. Drop a comment below telling us what moment impacted you most. We read every single one. Thank you for being here, and remember, the best time to start showing up for the ones you love is right now.